I need to get this off my chest, and I swear, every word I'm about to share is 100% true. It's the story of how I went from a die-hard skeptic of anything paranormal to someone who now sleeps with a light on. I've never written this down before, it's always been the kind of thing I've shared over a couple of beers, but here goes nothing. This happened about 4 years ago when I was 17. Back then, I used to spend a lot of nights alone at my mom's house, and honestly, I didn't mind. In fact, I liked having the place to myself. Privacy was my thing. But that all changed one night, and I've never been the same since. It was a Friday evening when it all began. I decided to head out to my favorite pizza joint, a cozy little spot about a 40-minute round trip. The night was cold and uneventful, the kind where the world feels wrapped in a blanket of stillness. I remember thinking how quiet everything was as I drove back home, my car headlights cutting through the mist that had begun to settle over the neighborhood. It was just an ordinary night. Or so I thought. The moment I walked through the door, everything changed. As soon as I stepped inside, I was hit by a suffocating, gut-wrenching feeling, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your stomach churn. It felt like I was being watched, as though unseen eyes were boring into me from every angle. I froze, my keys dangling in my hand, listening. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. But that silence wasn't comforting, it was oppressive, like the house was holding its breath. Let me describe the house so you can picture it. It was technically a 2-story place, but the bottom floor was barely used. It had a guest bedroom that smelled like mothballs, a laundry room, the garage entrance, and a set of creaky wooden stairs that led up to the main living area. Upstairs was where we spent most of our time, the kitchen, the living room, and the bedrooms were all there. As I stood there at the base of the stairs, the feeling of being watched didn't let up. My eyes were glued to the top of the staircase, half expecting to see a shadowy figure standing there. For a moment, I thought I did. But when I blinked, it was gone. Gripping my flashlight, I decided to do a full sweep of the house. Upstairs, downstairs, closets, even the garage, I checked every corner, my pulse pounding in my ears. There was nothing. And yet, that feeling persisted, clinging to me like a second skin. Looking back, I should have left right then and there. I should have hopped in my car and driven to my dad's place, no questions asked. But I was 17 and full of misplaced confidence. I told myself I was just being paranoid and headed to my room, which was down the hall from the living room. I tried to distract myself by playing video games, but the fear gnawed at me like a rat chewing through wood. I kept my hunting knife within arm's reach, its cold steel a fragile comfort against an unseen threat. Then I noticed something that made my blood run cold, shadows flickering under my door. The hallway light was on, casting a faint glow beneath the door, and I could see them clearly. They moved, faint and erratic, like someone pacing back and forth. But every time I turned my head to look directly at the door, the shadows stopped. It was as if whatever was out there knew I was watching. By the time I got sick of video games, I was officially unnerved. I turned off the light in my room but left every other light in the house blazing, hoping to push back the darkness and whatever might be lurking in it. I told myself it was all in my head, just an overactive imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. Lying in bed, gripping that knife like it was my lifeline, I saw them again. 2 dark shapes just under the door, motionless. They looked like the tips of shoes. Someone, or something, was standing there, silent and still, as if waiting. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears. I stared at those shadows for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing with horrific possibilities. Was it a person? Was it something else? What did it want? Summoning every ounce of courage, I leapt out of bed, flung open the door, and nothing. The hallway was empty, as silent and still as the grave. The shadows were gone. I stood there, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps, trying to convince myself it had been my imagination. But the oppressive feeling of being watched was stronger than ever. I decided then and there that sleep wasn't an option. I left my door wide open, turned on every light in my room, and sat on my bed, scrolling through my phone, desperate for distraction. And that's when I heard it, slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the bottom of the stairs. Even now, years later, the memory of those footsteps sends a shiver down my spine. They were heavy and deliberate, each one accompanied by the groan of the wooden stairs. Whoever, or whatever, was climbing those stairs wasn't in a hurry. It was taking its time, savoring each step, as if it knew I was listening. I froze, my phone slipping from my trembling hands. The air in the room felt thick, oppressive, as if the walls were closing in around me. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I thought I might pass out. I wanted to move, to run, but my body wouldn't obey. I was paralyzed with fear. Then, instinct took over. I bolted down the hallway, my feet barely touching the ground, and locked myself in the bathroom. My hands were shaking so badly that it took me 3 tries to dial 911. When the operator answered, I could barely get the words out. "There's someone in my house," I whispered. "Please send help." The police arrived within minutes, though it felt like hours. They searched the entire house, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. But they found nothing, no signs of forced entry, no footprints, no intruder. They assured me the house was safe, but their words felt hollow. I knew better. The next day, I told my mom everything. She was horrified and insisted we search the house together in daylight. We combed through every room, every closet, every inch of the house. At first, everything seemed normal. Then we found it. In my closet, hidden in the ceiling, was an attic hatch. It was slightly ajar. A cold wave of dread washed over me. I hadn't even known there was an attic entrance in my closet, and my mom swore she didn't either. The lid wasn't just cracked open, it was shifted enough that it looked like something had pushed it from the inside. Neither of us could reach the hatch without a ladder. That meant whatever had moved it wasn't us. My mom's curiosity got the better of her a few days later. She tracked down the previous owner of the house to see if they could shed any light on its history. What she discovered made my blood run cold. The house had been built by the previous owner's parents. Her father had died in my room. Since that night, I've been haunted by questions. Was it just a restless spirit? Or something darker, something more malevolent? Weeks later, I told this story to my girlfriend's family during the holidays. Her brother's wife's mom, a self-proclaimed medium, listened intently. When I got to the part about the footsteps, she interrupted me. "Those were heavy steps, weren't they?" "He was a big man," she said. Her words stopped me cold. She went on. "There was a loud crash too, wasn't there? Something falling or closing. At first, I couldn't remember. Then it came rushing back. That night, after I'd finally fallen asleep, I woke up to find my bedroom door closed. I'd left it wide open, but somehow, it had shut itself. Even now, in a new house, in a new town, I sleep with the lights on. And sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps on the stairs. If you ever feel like you're being watched, trust your instincts. Because sometimes, the darkness watches back.